Hey, good evening, everybody. Okay, my name is Inga Cotton. I'm the founder and executive director of San Antonio Charter Moms, and this is the ESA Town Hall. It is June 12th, 2025. Um, and I know we were planning to have this in person, but there was a historic amount of rainfall last night in San Antonio, and there's still some road closures and highway closures. So we decided we're going to keep it safe, keep it online tonight, and we're going to update you with our next in-person location soon. So all right, let me go ahead and bring my slides in, and I'm going to give you guys a little introduction to what we're going to talk about tonight. So I guess first of all, a couple of disclaimers. Um, there's still a lot we don't know about the specifics of education savings accounts in Texas. So, like I said, the date today is June 12th. So if you're watching this like a year from now, don't at me. We're going to know a lot more by then. But what we want to do is start introducing the topic and help bring people along so that you can get comfortable with the idea of education savings accounts, find out if they can help you or friends and family that you know. Um, and that's what it's for. So, okay, let me give a little bit of an introduction about um, who I am, what is San Antonio Charter Moms, and why we care so much about this. So I started this as a mom when my kids were little. So back in 2012, I found out that my son was on the autism spectrum, and I was going to need to do more research about different school options for him. And my son actually just graduated high school, so it's been a successful journey. We've homeschooled, we've done private early childhood programs. He graduated from a charter school, but along the way, I realized, like, man, I wish there were more resources out there to help explain to families, what all the great education options there are in San Antonio. So I set out to create those, and what were the tools I wish that I had had. And so it's really grown. We In 2018 we became a nonprofit. We have our website, sachartermoms.com. We have a Facebook group with over 15,000 members. We have a weekly email newsletter. We do Facebook lives like this. We also do in-person events. So we're going to have in-person ESA town halls. And then during enrollment season, we have school discovery days, which are, you get to meet dozens of schools and get applications in and find schools that are the right fit for your kids. So I'm really excited about education savings accounts because it's a new type of education option for families. So let's dive in to what education savings accounts are about. So here we go. Oh, actually, before I go, my team wants me to make sure we were planning to have an in-person event, and then we could do a head count. We want to make sure that we keep in touch with you. So if you are watching this on a screen, grab your phone, scan the QR code. Also, we can look in the comments. Our team is going to add links so that you'll be able to just give us name how we can contact you, because we want to keep you informed. Like I said, there's a lot we still don't know yet about the details of the education savings account program. We want to keep you informed about that. So, okay. So what we're going to cover today, we're going to cover things like, what is an ESA? What does it cover? Who's eligible for it? Our best guess about the timeline for it. So I'm planning to talk for maybe 20-30 minutes, and just cover as much as I can at a high level. But please put your questions in the comments. Our team is monitoring the comments, and I'm going to stay long enough to answer those. And if we can't get an answer to you right away, we will keep in touch. So we'll answer as best we can. So all right, so what is an ESA? So ESA stands for Education Savings Account. It means that money from the state of Texas will be available to families to pay for things like private school tuition, therapy, technology, and a whole bunch more. So we're going to get into more detail about what it covers. Um, in this initial 2 years of the ESA program, the state has allocated $1 billion, which sounds like a lot, but it actually, if you spread it out across eligible students, it's going to be probably less than 1% of the school-age children in Texas will be able to use the ESA in these first 2 years. But that cap expires after 2 years, so the program may expand after that. So what this means is that, like, up until now, as far as free public education in Texas, your options were a neighborhood public school, an in-district charter, a magnet, or an open enrollment public charter school. What this means is that going forward, the state funds will be available to help offset the cost of things like private school tuition, tutoring, and a whole bunch of other types of services. And these programs exist in many, many other states, but this is new in Texas. Okay, so next up, when does it start? Okay, so the legislative session just ended at the beginning of June. So that means we've got a year of 2025-26 that's going to be sort of the setup and planning and application year. And so the first students who will actually be going to private schools using ESA funds won't be until fall of 2026. So that seems like a long way off, but it's actually going to go by really fast because like our team, we're already ramping up to prepare for enrollment season, for 2025-26. And we want to be able to explain to families, how do you access ESAs? So we don't know the official timeline yet, but we expect to get information from the comptroller about that soon. Okay, so a lot of these slides are basically like, what questions are we getting? And this is the best kind of simple answer that I can give. So people are wondering, will my kid be eligible for an ESA? So there are some basic requirements. So the statute says that only US citizens or legal residents are eligible for ESAs. So the basic question is, if you could enroll your child at a neighborhood public school, right, at your ISD, or if you could apply to have them go to a public charter school, then they could also apply for the ESA with the caveat that they have to be US citizen or legal resident. Now, it's a good idea to plan ahead, have those documents ready, just like if you're applying for a charter school or your neighborhood ISD, they're going to want to see proof of residency. So if you need like a utility bill, a bank statement, any bills that come to your house that have your home address on it, that's proof of residency. So just have some of those documentation for when you apply. And like I said earlier, there's $1 billion allocated, but people are going to jump on this. And so as soon as that timeline gets announced, you're going to want to like set some reminders on your calendar and, keep following ESA Charter Moms, because we're going to keep reminding you and nudging you about these timeframes. So that explains who's eligible. Okay. So if you're just joining us, let me explain. I'm Inga Cotton with San Antonio Charter Moms, and this is a presentation about education savings accounts, and we want to keep in touch with you. So look for a link in the comments or use this QR code, share your contact information with us, and we're going to keep sending you updates about education savings accounts. Okay, so back to our presentation, like, subscribe, all that. Okay, so like I said, it's limited in the first 2 years to the $1 billion that the legislature has allocated. And there may be more applications than there are funds to cover enough ESAs. So the question is, who's going to get access to the ESAs? So there's kind of two sets of priorities. One set of priorities says siblings get top priority, which I think makes a whole lot of sense. Any parent who has driven different kids to different campuses understands why sibling priority is super important. The other thing is there's a set of tiers, like 4 different groupings based on whether a child has a disability and based on family income. So the highest priority group is families where the child has a disability and the family is considered low or middle income. So they earn less than 5 times the federal poverty level, so which currently is around $160,000 a year household income. So families who are above $160,000 a year household income are in the lowest priority group, and they're limited to no more than 20% of ESA funds going to that group. So okay, so students with a disability that are from a lower middle income family, they have a high priority. The next group to have access is low income students. So that's at less than 2 times the federal poverty level, so roughly $64,000 a year household income or less. Then there's a tier for those middle income families, household income greater than $64,000 a year, but less than $160,000 a year. And then finally, that no more than 20% of the ESA funds could go to families earning greater than $160,000 a year. And those numbers can change as the federal poverty level changes based on inflation. So that's just a snapshot of what we think the numbers would be over the next biennium. So that explains the priority. So siblings get high priority, kids with special needs who are in a lower or middle income family, and then it steps down from there. Okay, so oh wait, let me move my big head here so y'all can see. Okay, so if you're a family that gets an ESA, what can you spend the money on? I think the thing that people are most familiar with is the idea that you could use it to offset the tuition at a private school. And I had the privilege to speak with the folks at the Express News the other day, and they did great research about how many private schools in San Antonio would be affordable with an ESA. And there's a lot, especially like in the Archdiocese of San Antonio, or some schools that are co-ops or early childhood programs. There are affordable private schools that will come in at a price point less than what the ESA would pay. And you can actually carry money forward to future years. If there's unspent money in elementary school, that might help you pay for a more expensive high school. And then in addition to tuition, it can cover fees like application fees, uniforms, breakfast and lunch at the private school, textbooks, some transportation costs. So there's a whole set of kind of related costs that can be paid for out of the ESA. So even if so besides private school tuition, there's other categories. So therapy. So for example, my son went through speech therapy. That could have been covered by an ESA. Tutoring services, teaching services, learning materials, technology. There's also like online credential programs. Higher education could be vendors. And then also early childhood. So for families who qualify um, for public pre-K in Texas. And there's a whole set of eligibility criteria. We can share that to answer questions, but it could be military family, English language learners, low income families, things like that. There's a set of criteria. Those families can tap into ESA funds as well. Okay, I'm gonna get a little water break. There's a lot of talking. Okay, so one of the questions that we get is like, well, is it just any private school? It has to be an accredited private school. So the statute specifies that, and the comptroller is going to set up a system for folks to get accredited. Also, like there's things like background checks and things that the vendors have to go through. Okay, so another question we get a lot is like, okay, how much money is it? Now, these are estimates, or I'll explain. I should have put little asterisks on this. Okay, so the idea is that if it's going towards private school tuition at an accredited private school, it will be roughly $10,000 a year. Now, the actual formula is that it's 85% of what the state and local funding in statewide would be, like an average. So what that means is that as statewide public education funding increases over time, then the ESA should also increase over time. But it's set at 85%, not 100%, because it's designed to create efficiency. So, okay, so it says 10,000 on the slide. It should be a little asterisk. That amount hasn't been calculated yet. This is an estimate. For students with disabilities, there's the potential for that number to increase up to $30,000 a year. The statute specifies $30,000. Now, that amount is going to vary depending on what it says in the student's individualized education plan, or IEP. And if you think your child may need a special education evaluation, you can actually go to your local district and ask them for the evaluation for free, even if you don't intend to enroll your child there, even if you intend to homeschool or enroll your child in a private school using an ESA. So the okay, sorry, I lost my train of thought. Okay, so it's not guaranteed. Oh, my child has a disability; they're going to get 30,000. Not exactly. That's the cap. There's going to be a process where, you know, they look at the IEP and say, oh, well, your child spent this amount of time in this other classroom. This is their level of need. So, you know, their ESA is larger, you know, because they're not a neurotypical student. So we'll find out more, hopefully, as the program develops. So for homeschool students, there's an allocation of $2,000 a year. So a homeschool is basically a non-accredited private school, right? And I know from when I was homeschooling, I could have $2,000 would have gone a pretty long way towards all the books and supplies and materials that we were using. Okay, so that's kind of as best we can answer about the what the amounts will be. So, but the $10,000 a year number, that's subject to change. We need to find out what um, what the comptroller's office and what the commissioner is going to say. Um, okay, so there's a lot we don't know yet about the timeline. Now, our group, we have put out a lot of information about the enrollment timeline for charter schools, right? And every year we make a big deal about National School Choice Week, right? So National School Choice Week hits in the end of January, beginning of February, and that's usually the peak of enrollment season for a lot of charter schools are holding open enrollment or having lotteries. A lot of private schools are having drives to get families to put down deposits, get their applications in. So I expect that the ESA process will follow a similar cadence, right? Where like the fall will be, kind of research time, and then there's going to be kind of a lottery and a decision time in the spring. But like I said, there's a lot we don't know yet. So it's going to go through an online portal. Um, we don't know who the vendor is. We don't know what the URL is. We know the application is going to be free. And yeah, all I can say is stay tuned for updates, because we're going to be an information source for you guys. Speaking of which, so please use this QR code, use the link, share your contact information with us because we want to keep in touch and we want to keep presenting you with helpful information about ESAs. So that's what we're covering today. So again, my name is Inga Cotton. I'm the founder and executive director of San Antonio Charter Moms, and we're presenting a basic overview about education savings accounts, what we know now as of June 2025, knowing that we're going to keep finding out more and we're going to keep you updated. Okay, so what are some kind of common questions or concerns people have about ESAs? So I think one of the frustrations we hear from parents, if your child is at a traditional public school or a public charter school, then starting in third grade, they have to take the STAR test every year, and that can cause a lot of stress. So um, the an interesting thing about the education savings account, there is a testing requirement, but it doesn't have to be the STAR test. And the statute specifies it needs to be like a nationally standardized test, but it doesn't have to be STAR. And a lot of high quality private schools are already doing assessments because they want to make sure that their students are continuing to learn and make progress. If you don't want to do any testing at all, that's where the homeschooling comes in. So, but it's a different financial tier. Um, so another question that comes up, kind of an area of confusion, is, well, can my child go to a public school or a charter school and tap into the ESA? And the simple answer is no. It's either or. Um, that basically, if your child is enrolled at a neighborhood public school or at a public charter school where the school takes attendance and counts that student as being in attendance at that school, that means you're not eligible for the ESA. You have to pick either or. Now, there's sort of a gray area where, let's say you're a homeschooler, but you want to pay for like an a la carte AP calculus class at a public charter school or your neighborhood public school, then you would pay out of your ESA funds to that provider for that specific course. But your child would not be counted for attendance at that public school, right? So that's a little bit of a gray area. But in general, you have to pick either or, right? Either you're all in at a public school and the state is supporting that public school through the average daily attendance, or your child is enrolled at um, a, a private school tapping into the ESA that way. And so the any child in kindergarten through 12th grade that meets the criteria I talked about earlier, U.S. citizen or legal resident, if you're eligible to go to a public school, you're eligible to apply for an ESA. For pre-K, those eligibility requirements apply, and those are available online. We have those resources, but it's income based, or these vulnerable groups that need more support, right? But if it's students who are homeless, students who are English language learners, military families that move a lot, right? So those groups have access to public pre-K in Texas. So, um, okay, so let's see. Oh, let me throw this up one more time. We do want to keep in touch with you. I've covered the points that I wanted to cover in this overview. Um, And like I said, there's a lot we don't know yet. We don't know the specific timeline. We don't know how the application exactly is going to work. But we do want to have some basic information out there so you can start thinking about it and consider educating savings accounts, consider whether private schools might be more affordable by the time the 2026-27 school year rolls around. And we have an entire enrollment season, the 2025-26 season, to talk these things through. So okay, so yeah, so please use the QR code or use the link. Keep in touch with us that way. Um, okay, so I'm going to look at the comments, then let me check with my team. Let's see, is there anybody? I think okay, so I'm looking at the comments to see. Okay, so I see a question about the timeline again, and that's yeah, that's really key. So, I guess just for a little bit of context, so for a typical open enrollment public charter school, the enrollment period would open maybe around November, sometimes earlier, sometimes later, and then open enrollment would close probably around January, February, and then they'll run the lottery and issue offers. Right, so that's a typical enrollment season. So fall, you start doing your research, doing tours. Then when the application opens, you get your application in. They're very short and simple, and then you wait for the lottery and see what happens. And then you get your offers. You choose which school you enroll your kids. So this year, there's going to be an extra layer, right? So we'll find out what the timeline is for the ESA timeline. There will be a process where you go to the comptroller's website, where the ESA portal is, create an account and apply that way. Then you'll need to prove that you're eligible for the Texas program. And if your child has a disability, you'll need to present documentation for that because they'll need to figure out what's the amount of money that they can allocate for you. And then there's going to be kind of a parallel process where you try to match up with the right provider or vendor, right? So not every private school in San Antonio may choose to be a provider, right? Like a school might say, well, we're just not sure how this is going to play out. Or maybe we're concerned about separation of church and state, or we're concerned about the testing requirement, the accreditation requirement, whatever. There may be private schools that just stay on the sidelines, right? So you'll need to look in the vendors and find out, okay, who are these accredited private schools? Which ones are set up to be able to take money through the ESA? And then, one of the key differences between public schools, including charter schools on one side, versus private schools is that private schools can turn away students who have disabilities that the school feels like they can't serve, right? So a public school must take all students who apply, regardless of what their special needs are, what disabilities they have. But a private school can turn students away. And the statute specifies that the private school can continue to practice whatever religious beliefs they have, right? So there's going to be kind of a matching process, right? Of like a family needs to find out, do we qualify for the ESA, right? And there's different priority levels, and then they'll also need to match up with a private school that's accredited, that's a provider, and has space for that family. So there's the timeline, but there's also a process. Okay, let me check the comments again. Let's see. Oh, okay. So we have a comment question. Method testing that would be scheduled when applying, or is that after the lottery offers? Ooh, that's a really good question. Okay, so one of the interesting things about private schools, okay, unlike, right, so let me start with, okay, so at a neighborhood public school, if you live in the enrollment zone, they have to take you. They have to make room for you. Even if they have to bring in portable buildings, they have to take you. So now charter schools have a limited amount of space, but they take in all the applicants, they run a lottery, and then they randomly accept students. They can't turn a student away just because you didn't pass the qualifying exam, right? Or they can't look at your past report cards. They can't look at recommendation letters or things like that. But private schools do all those things, right? They could ask for a statement of faith. They could ask for a letter from your parish or your pastor. They could ask for reference letters or a sample of work, like an essay, things like that. Right. And I know there's qualification exams that private schools take, right? So a private school may only offer advanced classes. They want to make sure that the students they accept can do that kind of work. Now, so that is the question. It's a really good question. Like, how is it going to work? Like, if let's say a family qualifies for an ESA and they apply to a private school, at what stage do they take these qualifying exams, or what stage do they bring these supplemental materials, to apply to that private school? I don't know yet, and we're going to keep talking with private schools and find out how they want to do it. Presumably, there will be some guidance from the comptroller, is that the rulemaking and how they set this up. I'd be interested to know. I'm going to be checking in with folks from other states that are already doing this, because for example, Arizona and Florida have really large education savings accounts programs, and they have had some hiccups in how they've had things set up. Um, so I'm going on a little bit of a tangent here, but so like one of the things they specify in the statute is that, like, at what point does the money go into the portal so that the family can access it, right? So let's say the family gets approved for the ESA, so a quarter of the funds have to be available in their account starting July 1. But that means if the school comes to you before July 1 and says, "Hey, we need a deposit," the family might have to say, "I'm sorry, we don't have access to the ESA funds yet. We can't give you a deposit yet, but we will in July." Um, and then right, so and then the next quarter has to come by October, and the rest has to be in there by April. So it's designed to kind of spread the money out over the year. Um, so yeah, no. So because my advice, if you're a parent and you're trying to be as prepared as possible, and let's say a handful or a couple of private schools you kind of have your eye on, my advice would be communicate with those private schools, find out when their um, testing or qualifying happens, and make sure your child has access to that testing, so that hopefully you've paved the way so that you get all the pieces to line up of right of getting access to ESA funds, applying to the private school, and making sure you've done all the steps, jump through all the hoops. So now I can't tell from the question, if it doesn't ask the question about testing, it might have to do with the assessments and the accountability. So families who have kids in public school know that start testing season is usually in the spring, right? And it's spread out a little bit depending on if it's a through eighth grade exam or if it's an end of course exam. But there's certain testing windows for start testing. Um, but private schools, they can choose to do STAR, but they don't have to. They can also choose a different standardized test, but presumably they will either do it at the end of the school year, or they might do testing at the beginning, middle, and end of the school year in order to track like growth or progress of their students. But that's something that the private school would do for students who are already admitted. Um, and then now homeschoolers won't have to do that. And I know there's concern in the homeschooling community about ESAs of like, oh, is this going to create more oversight or more intrusion into private schools or into homeschooling from the government? And my advice, if you're concerned about that, is basically just don't apply. Just keep doing what you're doing with your homeschool, and the government will stay out of your business. So, um, okay, let's see. I'm trying to think. Let me go to the next slide where I have kind of a recap. So I'll keep an eye on the comments. If you have more comments or questions, just drop it in the comments, and I'll see it. I'll address it. But just to kind of recap what we've talked about so far. So again, to say who I am, I'm Inga Cotton, and I'm with San Antonio Charter Moms, and this is our ESA town hall, right? So we're talking about education savings accounts and talking about the basics. So I'm excited about this opportunity. I remember when I was in high school in Texas, before there were charter schools or ESAs in Texas, I remember reading about ESA programs, or actually voucher programs in other states, and thinking, wow, that would be really interesting. Because I went to a good high school, but I didn't feel like I fit in. And I always kind of wished I had more options. And so the fact that this is actually happening in Texas is pretty exciting to me. Um, but have a lot of sympathy for folks who feel stressed or uncertain about all this change, because it does feel like we're stepping through the looking glass, and this is just a different world. So what I hope is that we can spread information about what this program is, how families can access it, and we want to make sure that the money goes to families who need it the most, right? Like those kids like my son who have a diagnosis, and they need to be in the right education setting to be able to thrive. And that's why that highest priority group is the kids with special needs, right? And then I also want to make sure that people know about this in time so that because when they do announce these deadlines, you can get those on your calendar. Keep in touch with us. We have our website, which is sachartermoms.com. We have our Facebook group. So if you search San Antonio Charter Moms discussion group, you can find us there. Um, you can follow us on our Facebook page. We're also on Instagram. We're on LinkedIn. We have our weekly email newsletter that's just packed with information, like which schools have open seats right now. So we're going to announce our dates for school discovery days. So there's lots of ways to keep in touch with us, and we will help steer you in the right direction. And whether that's a private school that you can access through an ESA, or whether that's an open enrollment charter school, your neighborhood public school, homeschooling. There's lots of resources out there. We just want you to find the one that's the right fit for your kids. So, I see another question. Let's see. Um, let's see. Okay, so Cami is asking, let's see, have they provided guidance on qualifications for non-school expenditures, therapy, tutoring, curriculum, etc.? Okay, so Kami, what I can do, I can't do it in real time, but I've taken some notes. So the statute has a section um, that explains like what non-school expenditures are covered, and they do have some requirements on specifically like so for example, like if a tutor is offering teaching services, then they want that tutor to be either like a certified teacher or a retired certified teacher or a college professor or a retired college professor, things like that. And also they have requirements about the so like in Texas there's a do not hire list for teachers who have done improper things with students, so we definitely want to keep those people away from kids. And then there's also like a um, there's sorry, this is like teacher employment law stuff. Anyway, there's lists of people who are excluded from teaching, and those people are not eligible to tap into ESA funds for tutoring. So what I can do, Cami, is it's too detailed to go now, but there is some specific stuff in the statute, and I can copy paste that into the comments later. And then, but also with the asterisk that we're kind of waiting to see what the comptroller's office does as far as rulemaking, right? Because like the legislature creates the statute, but then they delegate authority to the comptroller's office to actually implement this program, and then also contract with these entities that will actually handle the funds, right? They'll actually create the website. And there's going to be all kinds of rules kind of behind the scenes, that we don't see, but within the website that will, specify, okay, these are who the vendors and providers are, and just for this particular family, these are what expenditures that they've tapped into. And I guess sort of a related thought is that the money never goes directly to the family. What it is, the parents go in to the portal and select that provider or vendor, and then the money goes from the state to the vendor. And there's different processes like auditing and things like that that are meant to prevent fraud and make sure that the money actually is going towards an education purposes. So this is another kind of lessons learned, from rollouts in other states where there might have been mess ups about how the money was spent. So, but yeah, great question, Cami, because there's some specification in the statute, but we'll probably know more once the rules come out, and even more once the portal comes out. We see who the providers are. Okay, so let's see. My closing slide is yes. Please follow us on Facebook. Join our Facebook group. Follow us on Instagram, LinkedIn. We're on X. And I really want to ask everybody. This is a learning process for us. So like I'm sticking my neck out here. This is my first public presentation about ESAs, and I hope to keep doing better as we learn more details and as I learn to not say so much. But this QR code is really helpful for us because it's an exit ticket. Like we want to hear from you what you learned from this. What did we not cover that we should have covered? Um, and we're trying to track like how many people are we reaching, because um, I'm really passionate about this. Like knowing more about education really helped me give my kids the best start, and I want to help as many families as I can in San Antonio to find the right setting for their own kids. So, okay, so that QR code's on the screen right now. That's the exit ticket, and then hope you all got that. I'm going to go back This is kind of our attendance sheet. We just want to keep track of who's able to join us, and we really want to keep offering more information about ESAs because, like I said, this is kind of preliminary. We're waiting for more updates from the state so we can share that with you. Explain what schools are participating. How much money specifically will be covered in private school tuition. When is the portal open? When is the lottery going to happen? Right. So that in that uncertainty of like, oh, okay, we actually got it. So what I hope is that by a year from now, that there are thousands of happy families in San Antonio who are now going to be able to access a private school education for their kids that they weren't able to access before. And that's what I get excited about. Um, okay, well, I want to thank my team that's like behind the scenes here, helping me prep for this. Helping me get this show on the road. Please look up our page. It's shrmoms.com. Actually, here I got the banner. Here we go. It's shrmoms.com/schools/ESAs, and you'll get the dates for our upcoming town hall events, including in-person events. We've got more virtual options coming up, and we have some different themed events that we're planning too. So keep in touch, and yeah, thank you so much for joining. I'm going to sign off. This is Inga Cotton with San Antonio Charter Moms. Thanks, y'all.